Hello, I'm Milan Shlevinsky and you're watching TVP World Talks. This time we're going to focus on the situation in the Middle East following the Israeli attacks against Iranian installations. Questions have arisen as to stability in the region and as to further actions which may be taken by the regime in Tehran. We'll be discussing all this with our guest today, Ellias Aghili Dehnavi from the Abhaseed Foundation Fund. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello and good morning, and thank you so much for the invitation.
So what is your assessment of these attacks? Iran has been trying to downplay their effectiveness. Israel is saying they may be more effective than it seems. What is your take on this?
Well, it's indeed a very important point to consider from the very beginning that we are witnessing a war of discourse from the very outset of the attacks. We've been witnessing a war of discourse between these two parties. One discourse saying that we have successfully hit all our prearranged targets in the Iranian territory, and the other party, which is the Iranian government, saying and insisting on the notion that we have intercepted most of the attacks. So there exists a war of narration here, and both parties are talking about their own stories. But the facts and what we are having on the ground is that the Israeli army has kind of successfully targeted prearranged targets in the Iranian integral and interior land. They have assigned three important provinces, starting from the southwest to the capital. The main target was the interior air defense system of Iran. They have targeted and attacked the S-300 air defense systems that were imported to Iran by the Russian Federation 2 years ago successfully, and they were installed in the most important parts of the country. Based on the important news agencies and what we have heard during the past 2 days, the Israelis have attacked and destroyed the S-300 air defense system as the first move. And then two phases followed the first range of attacks. The warehouses where the Iranians were keeping their missiles, and third, the workshops and warehouses that were used mostly to produce the drones. So the real and precise number of casualties or harms done to the military infrastructures are still a big question mark, because the agencies or the factual and ground agents are trying to blur the real numbers and the real harms.
So now, what is likely to be the response from Tehran? Do you think that Iran will heed the warnings from Washington and essentially consider this exchange, as it was called in the communique from Washington, concluded?
At the moment, we are witnessing and we are seeing a cycle of attack and a round of a confrontation in this region. Iran is now facing itself in a dead-end alley, and it has two important reasons. The first reason is that inside Iran, we are witnessing some sort of social and political riots and upheavals. The pro-government streams might press the government to take revenge, and the Iranians are now figuring out their real capabilities, and they're also at the same time seeing the real capabilities of Israel. And the second point here is that if they don't attack and if they don't retaliate, then they might lose their political and legitimate face within the country and society and among their followers and supporters. Regarding Washington and the policy-making process regarding all these incidents that we have seen, I can say that Washington played a very important role when it came to the Israel attack towards Iran. they technically pulled the strings and didn't let a full-scale war to take place. They had intense negotiations that kind of started right after the Iranian attack Israel, and they could stop the Israeli army not to attack the refinery sites and the atomic sites within the Iranian territory. Regarding the coming incidents, the Americans have already sent their signals and messages clearly to the both governments in Tehran and Tel Aviv that you should stop the escalation and you should cut the round of confrontation. But it all depends on it doesn't technically depend. What I want to say is that we have to wait after the American election because the Democrats didn't want the escalation to reach a full scale. Any escalation would result in the rise in the oil and petroleum export, and any rise in petroleum and gas price in the United States would result in the kind of blackening of the name of the Democrats. And we are at the outset of the election. So for the moment that we're now analyzing the events, we have to notice that one should stop before the election, and we should resume our analysis and study after the elections.
And do you think it was a convenient moment for Israel to attack Iran at this stage because of the impending elections, because of the fact that the Biden administration would not be very forceful in condemning this attack at this stage?
Well, there's a fact here, and we have to notice this fact. Israel is not a 100% dependent on what policymakers decide in Washington. It's a sort of a political and military symbiosis. If it was the U.S. Administration, they wouldn't let Israel to even launch a simple attack. So we can see that Israel has its own freedom of action when it comes to its national interest. Perhaps they could use the only chance before the election. Now that I'm coming back to a question, they have used their only chance because within the next 2 weeks we are having the American election, and we don't know who will be the next president, and it's going to be a gamble. It was a gamble, for the Israeli government to take the attack at the most proper time because they don't want to make decisions based on ambiguity. For the moment, they know who they are dealing with in Washington, D.C., but they don't know who will they be dealing with after the election. Because if Miss Kamala Harris becomes the president and based on her mostly leftist ideology, Israel might not be as successful as it was during the previous month or previous weeks to deepen its operation. I'm not saying that she's not going to support Israel, but I'm saying that she's more conservative when it comes to the military support for the Israeli government.
What do you think is going to be the impact of these attacks, if any, on the nuclear program? The US has warned Israel not to attack nuclear facilities, but there were also certain reports suggesting that a centrifuge manufacturing site might have been targeted and that its capabilities to manufacture these devices used for enrichment of uranium might have been thereby degraded. So what do you think is likely to happen to the program now?
Well, the Iranians are now planning to have some urgent meetings in the capital, Tehran. The High National Security Council, under the presidency of Masoud Pezeshkian, is going to hold consequential meetings to decide on different topics. Definitely, one of those topics will be the progress in the atomic agenda and program of Iran. This is one side of the events. And the other side is that the opposition in Israel was also so critical when it came to the attack on Saturday. The opposition clearly said that it was a chance that the government under the, reign of President Netanyahu, or let's say Chancellor Netanyahu, has missed. They could have attacked the, nuclear sites, and this is the opposition perspective. And based on the idea, they have missed their chance. And if I want to directly answer your question, I should say that it's not as simple as we might think. Reaching a nuclear weapon and stated clearly and openly to the world has severe consequences for the Iranian government. And the other point here is that after this attack, based on what the international news agencies and also intelligence services have uncovered, the Iranians are now more vulnerable towards the air attacks. So the Iranian atomic sites are no longer 100% protected.
So this is a clear warning to the regime in Tehran. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Elias Aghili Dehnavi was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a lovely day.
And I'm Abhaseed Foundation Fund. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.